So this video has been a long time coming. I always planned to get around to it and I kept forgetting, and so many people have asked me to just make the video already, and so here I am, finally making the video. So I am getting a puppy. We are on our way now. It's been a bit of a hassle to try and get her up here because she is coming from Arkansas and the border closed before we could actually get her across. Last year, a friend of mine sent me a text message saying, "Hey, remember that friend of mine down in the States who has a whole bunch of dogs? Well, they just had a litter of puppies for, an accident." And I went, "Oh, cool, cool." And she sent me a picture. And as soon as I saw these puppies, I was like, I need one. I need one right now. And I said as much. I was like, I want one of those puppies. And she's like, okay. So that was that. I was getting a puppy. I didn't care what anybody else had to say. Taiko is a Great Pyrenees. And if you don't know anything about Great Pyrenees, they're mountain guardian dogs. That means they're big, they're fluffy, and they got a real big bark. I'm not even kidding. The noise that comes out of her is absolutely terrifying sometimes if you don't expect it. But what they do basically is they hang out with sheep all day. A lot of farmers and ranchers and all the like use mountain guardian dogs to protect their flocks or their herds, and they just go off on their own, chill out with the sheep, and are super, super relaxed. Of course, unless somebody comes after one of their flock, and then that's a whole other story. But basically, Great Pyrenees were bred to take on wolves. They even have all this extra scruff around their neck that a wolf can latch onto them and they'll keep fighting. It's so cool to learn all these things. They even have an extra dew claw to help them climb. But because they hang out with sheep all day, that means that they're super laid back. Like super, super chill. And Taiko is no different. Even as a puppy, she is one of the laziest dogs I have ever met, and I love it. I love it because she'll just hang out with me all day. I'll lay around on the couch, or I'll sit and play video games, or I'll sit and edit, and she's just content to chill out and do absolutely nothing other than occasionally get a pet here and there. But here's how she got here. You remember how I said that she was born at the beginning of the pandemic? Well, just as she was going to come up to me, she was going to be shipped up to Canada, the Canadian-US border shut. That is a huge thing. It's been shut for over a year now. And all non-essential travel was a no-go, meaning I couldn't go down to her and nobody could bring her up to me. She was just stuck in the US. All essential travel is allowed, people who work on the other side of the border or any goods that need to come across, but other than that, no. You're not supposed to be traveling. But here's the thing. I needed my dog. Taiko just isn't your ordinary dog. I was very, very lucky in getting her, and I'm so thankful that I even managed to get her. She cost me almost next to nothing because as soon as the owner of the mother found out that she was going to be trained to be my support animal, she practically gave her away. More or less, I paid for her vaccines and food while she was down there, and to get her up here. But as I said, she got trapped on the other side of the border. My friend managed to find a transportation company that said that they could get her across the border. In fact, they had brought other animals across the border during the pandemic. And so one company brought her up to Seattle because, I live across the border in the Vancouver area. And I went to the border that day. I went to the border the day she was meant to come across, and I was waiting, and I was so excited, and I was just like, I was practically vibrating in my seat because my puppy was here, my puppy was going to be there. And then they got turned around.
People who donated to be able to pay for the transportation costs because it was just so insane. Oh, God. I just want my dog.
And I have to tell you, that is one of the most devastating feelings in the world. Knowing you were this close to getting someone or something that was going to be so important in your life, only to have all hope dashed right in front of you. And then the transport company was going to try again in a couple days, and they're like, we'll feed and take care of her until then. And then I get the call saying, you need to find somewhere to put her because we can't keep her anymore. We're not going to be crossing the border and all of these things. Money was refunded, but they basically were about to turn my puppy out onto the street because they didn't want to deal with her anymore after they made a mistake. They made a mistake in their paperwork and their company was banned from crossing the border from then on, which, that's their own fault. Why are you punishing my animal for something that you did? We had the option to send her back to the original owner, but that was all the way in Arkansas. She had already traveled across the entire US to get to Seattle. We couldn't send her back. The people who had brought her had already left. What were we going to do? So I reached out. I reached out to a community online of my friends that I've made. I was like, you guys need to help me. Who's in Seattle? Who can go and get my puppy dog? Like, who can help me take care of her until we figure out how to get her to me? And the response was almost immediate. There were so many people that flooded into the Discord and were like, okay, so-and-so can do this and so-and-so can do this, and everything was taken care of within like a couple of hours. And she was dropped off with a friend and she was not in very good shape. Taiko was covered in vomit and feces and just really, really, oh God, I don't even want to think about it, but at least she got bathed and she was fluffed up and she got some toys and some food and she was happy, and then friends took her in. Friends took her in and said that they would take care of her until we could get her across the border. And then the next day they changed their mind. Apparently they didn't realize how much work a puppy was going to be. They had a dog that they had adopted from a shelter that was older. They didn't have to train and they didn't have to deal with. I'm not exactly sure what they expected to do with a 2-month-old puppy. But basically Taiko was stuck down there for already over a week, almost 2 weeks at this point, and now she's being thrown out of the second place that she's being taken care of. So I had to scramble to find somebody else to take care of her because nobody else could. And I eventually got her into a doggy daycare through jumping through a whole bunch of hoops. Like, I honestly had to jump through so many hoops to be able to have them to take her because I wasn't actually present. I couldn't go in and fill out forms or anything of the like. But a friend of mine went and picked her up and took her over to the daycare, and that's where she hung out for the next few days. Well, I scrambled to try and figure out how the hell I was going to get my puppy. I was calling all sorts of places. I was even calling the Great Pyrenees Rescue Center and everything just to find out how I could get her across the border. And by this point, I was absolutely beside myself, and I was having panic attacks, and I was so anxious, and I was just a giant mess, and I didn't know what to do anymore. I actually called my parents for advice. I don't often call my parents for advice. I like being able to deal with things on my own. So the fact that I actually went and called my parents and be like, look, this is the situation, I need help, tells you how fucking stressed out I was. Plus, I had wanted to surprise my family. I didn't want to tell them that I was getting a puppy because I wanted to surprise them with a puppy. My dad had dogs growing up his entire life. My mom had this dog that she absolutely loved. But growing up, I never had any pets. And I always wanted a dog. And I was finally getting one. And I was so excited to introduce her to my family. And then this happened. And then she was just stuck. And I couldn't do anything. And I couldn't be with her. And I couldn't get her. And then I figured out the loophole. I figured out the loophole that would allow me to go down to Seattle, pick her up, and then come home.
I am currently at the airport. I'm waiting to board my flight to Seattle to go pick up my puppy because the chaos has left her stranded down in Seattle for the last month or so because nobody's been able to get her across the border. So I found out the only way I can get her is they are allowing flights into the USA, and then I will be able to drive up and walk across the border with her when I'm coming home. And I got pulled into the scary part of customs because nobody really wanted to believe that somebody was willing to travel just one day during this whole pandemic. But, I mean, if it means I get my dog, then I don't care.
And I did it on my own. You have to understand that I have a huge fear of flying. I'm absolutely terrified to get in a plane, especially when half of my family lives on the other side of the country and I'm flying over there all the time, except this year. This last year, I've mostly stayed on the ground, which I'm actually kind of thankful for. But I got driven to the airport. I had my mask. The airport was pretty much empty. My temperature was taken. They asked me a whole bunch of questions. Everybody was spread out in the waiting area and all the seats were separated and nobody could sit next to each other. And I started going up in the air and I had nobody to support me. I didn't have anybody coming with me. I had nobody sitting beside me. And I was going to get the dog that was going to be my support animal for future flying. So
I landed safely. It was nerve-wracking. I've never ever flown on my own before, so it was somewhat terrifying to do. But it wasn't so bad. It was a really short flight and super relaxing. So now I'm just waiting to get picked up, and then hopefully we can go and get my puppy. Yay!
The first time I saw her, as they walked her out the door, I, honest to God, almost started crying again because she had been trapped in Seattle for almost a month at this point. She'd been bounced around and poorly taken care of by people, and she was here. I could finally hold her and I could pet her, and she was beautiful. She was the sweetest little girl ever. And she was so fluffy. And she was a lot bigger than she was supposed to be when I got her. But I still got her, and that was the important part. And then began the trip home. And I cannot stress again how thankful I am to my friend for driving me the 2 hours to the Canada-US border. She drove me all the way to the Canada-US border. We stopped for lunch at one point, which another one of our friends paid for through a gift card, which was super, super sweet as well. And then I had to walk across the border. I had to walk across the border where my ride was waiting to take me home to sit for 2 weeks in quarantine because I had gone to the US. I had gone down to the US, to Seattle, which was a hotspot during that period of the quarantine. It was insane. Yeah, everybody was still in lockdown for the most part at that point, and I flew down. I drove up, I walked over, and I came home with a puppy. Life with Taiko has been absolutely amazing. I don't even know how to begin to explain everything that she is. At this point, she is one of the main reasons that I get out of bed every morning. I have to. I'm no longer just living for myself. I'm living for another being that depends on me. And some people will be like, well, you had cats, or you have a cat, or, you know, there were other animals in your house that you had to take care of. That's true. That's true. At the time, I still had Soprano, and we unfortunately had to put her down at the end of last year. And I have Timpani, who I've had Timpani since she was 6 weeks old and could fit in a shoe. But she's also a cat. She's a cat, and she's pretty damn independent, and she doesn't really need me. Most of the time, she ignores me. But Taiko, no matter what, no matter how many times I leave and come back, no matter how many times I disappear into the bathroom or into the bedroom and return to the living room, she is still so excited to see me. She is so happy. It's like I am the greatest thing in the world, and she loves me no matter what. It's amazing. She's a calm presence that is just there for support. I can sit there for hours and hug her and pet her, and she's not gonna leave. She'll just sit there and bask in the affection and make sure I feel just as loved. Most of the time, I take her out for a walk and we wander off someplace and we sit on a balcony for hours on end. And she has her bowl of water and sometimes some food, and she'll occasionally get treats and pets, and she's just thrilled to sit with me while I work. Because I honestly do just go and sit on a balcony or a patio of a coffee shop and I just work. Everything here is still locked down, so I can't actually go in anywhere. So why not take my dog? Anyway, that's the story of how I got Taiko. Taiko's here. She's part of my life, and I'm so happy to have her. I'm so happy to watch her grow up into a big, giant polar bear fluff ball, because that's what she's gonna be. If you've never seen a Great Pyrenees, go look up a full-grown Great Pyrenees, because they're just so fucking fluffy, and I love it. And I'm so excited to see her fully grown. I'm so excited to see her fully fluffed. But yeah, that's the story of how I got Taiko. She's a sport dog, and I don't think she's ever gonna let me down.